Hey guys, how are you all doing tonight? Let's just say that this is my first video that I've ever made. Probably better to say that it's a live stream because I don't have any other way of making other videos right now. But I am happy to start something like this. I've been wanting to do something like this for a really long time, and I'm glad. I'm glad to get started at it because I love music. Um, And honestly, music for me is just one of the most powerful things that I can think of. Probably should probably turn that down. It's probably one of the most powerful things I can think of. And man, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I don't know where this channel is going. I don't know what future content is going to look like, but all that I know is that from this point on, it's going to be music related and stuff such as that. So I wanted to jump right into it by talking about albums that I love. Also albums that I've spun on the turntable recently, and I just want to talk about them, man. Nothing else, nothing more. Being a new member to the VC, there really is no membership to the VC. It's just kind of something that you do automatically. Um, it's just really a good way to start my channel, I think. So stay with me if you want, if you're interested. Go grab yourself a beer or something, because I don't know how long this video is going to be, but it will be a little long because I don't know. I mean, I'm going to go into depth here. So here we go. So the first album up is Tame Impala, Currents. Definitely one of my faves. I mean, it's just such a good album. Just based off of the music, it's probably the best Tame Impala album. I mean, they're all pretty good from a musical standpoint, but this is what really introduced me to the band and really got me into their music and really just wanted to make me look into their stuff even more. And I just love the artwork on this album too. It really sums up Currents. You got all these lines right here, and you got this pinball looking ball right there that's kind of squiggling them all up, kind of ruining the Currents. And but it's really neat, and it's also really cool artwork too. Particularly if you open up the inside right here, which I already showed, and it's got like this rainbow colored Currents right here. It's just super cool, man. And the album itself, the vinyl, comes on a custom label right there. You got the song listings on that one side, and on the other side, you got what looks to be the ball with a hole in the middle. So very, very cool. Very, very cool stuff. And this is the only Tame Impala album that I have right now. I don't have any others at the moment. I do plan on collecting them all at some point. But you got to be humble. So yeah, man, Tame Impala Currents, definitely one of my faves. Moving back about 30 years in time, let me adjust this a little bit. About 30 years in time to a different era. Another one that I love is Tears for Fears songs from the Big Chair. Again, just judging by the music, another great album. Um, I mean, you have a lot of classic songs on this album that just about everyone knows. Songs like Shout, The Working Hours, a really cool song. Everybody Wants to Rule the World. Everybody's heard of that song before. Mother's Talk, also another very cool tune. I Believe is a beautiful song. Then it leads into Head Over Heels, which is another hit off this album. And then the last song on this album is one that really stands out to me. It's called Listen. It's an instrumental song, but it's different. It's really like experimental and atmospheric. It blends well with the other songs on the album, but it's also very, very different. Great album, man. Definitely, I think definitely the best Tears for Fears album. And again, it comes on a custom label right there. Always like the custom labels. For me, when there is an album with a custom label, it really shows that The artwork on that album goes deep, if you know what I mean. Okay, so kind of staying in the same era, Depeche Mode. This is called Some Great Reward. I don't know a whole lot of Depeche Mode. They can get kind of weird at times. um, but this album, I think, holds up pretty well throughout the whole front to back. You know what I mean? There aren't really any moments on this album, at least in my opinion, where the music gets a little weird. Like, if you're introducing somebody to the band, you probably wouldn't want to have them listen to the whole album. But no, I mean, this album, it does hold up very well. I think it's their breakthrough album. You have one of the most well-known Depeche Mode songs on here, which is "People Are People." You flip it over to the other side, and you have songs like "Somebody," which was a hit, "Master and Servant," and "Blasphemous Rumors," which are all those are all hit songs off this album. So it was a pretty big album back in its day, even though the band was somewhat underground, somewhat kind of out of the mainstream, at least at that time. So yeah, cool album, Some Great Reward. Moving on. Okay, come on. Back in there. Kind of staying in the alternative 80s section. We've got the Smiths. The Queen is Dead. Discovering the Smiths was interesting. The Smiths are very, at least for the time, they were a very different band. No band liked them at the time. No band sounded like them. They almost sounded more modern than they did 80s. Because this is mid 80s right here, but it sounds like it could be a modern indie band that had released an album within the last year or so, or not year, but maybe more like the last, I don't know, 20 years. So, an album and a band that has held up very well at the time. It's kind of cool, gatefold. And you get a picture of the band right there, and you get the lyrics. So, yeah, Queen is Dead. Great album. Great listen. The Queen is Dead obviously is a really cool song. It's Over. I really like that song. Cemetery Gates, Big Mouth Strikes Again. One of my favorites on here is There Is a Light That Never Goes Out. It's probably the most well-known song on the album. It's become very popular in recent years with there's this one meme called the Doomer meme. And so they've been using that song a lot. They've been like slowing it down, putting it on Doomer videos, to just like describe how depressing life is. So yeah. And then another album from the Smiths, another great album, is Meat is Murder. I find that title to be interesting. I think Morrissey, the lead man of the band, I think he's a staunch vegan. So, he was really making a statement with this one album, talking about how meat is murder. If you're eating meat, you're murdering animals and stuff, whatever. But the music's good. The music's really good. The Headmaster Ritual is a good opening song. I love the song. I Want One, I Can't Have One. Nowhere Fast, Will I Wonder. I mean, just judging by the music, it's another good album. Very very powerful statement from the band. I probably shouldn't be taking all these out to show you the labels and the album and stuff, but yeah, again, this one does come on the custom label. That also looks great. This is a reissue too, so the media right there looks very clean. And I know the camera on my computer is probably not the best. I keep glaring in the back of this light. It looks like there's the sun right there, which is pretty funny. So yeah, the Smiths, great band. Plan to dive into them more. These are like the only two albums that I've really listened to by the band, surprisingly. So they're definitely a band I got to get into more, got to check out more. Okay, so really changing up the style here, really going into really diving into a different form of music. This is one of my favorite bands, or one of my favorite groups to listen to. That is Genesis, and this album is called Trespass. It wasn't their first album, but it was their first album of the progressive rock style, because their first album was more pop inspired. It was more like the Beatles, Beach Boys, the Yardbirds and stuff. I don't know about the Yardbirds, but some of those earlier '60s bands. It was more inspired in that way. But this was definitely way different in terms of musical style. I mean, a lot of musical complexity on this album. Um, it's also a really cool album with a lot of cool artwork too. It's got a really cool gatefold with kind of a lot of this, Lord of the Rings, magical, mysterious artwork is the way I'd like to describe it. You got the lyrics right there. And this album was without Phil Collins. This was the album before Phil Collins had joined the band. This is with Peter Gabriel on the vocals, early Peter Gabriel stuff. And it's an interesting album. It's a good album. It's definitely an album that has to grow on you over time. It's not one that, if you were going to introduce somebody to Genesis, you wouldn't be introducing them with Trespass. They would probably be turned off by the band immediately once you put this on, unless they had some really weird, adaptable, wide open musical taste where it's like they listen to anything and they like it. This album definitely has to grow on you, man. It's certainly not one that when you listen to it, you're like, oh, I really like this album. But still a great album. Early Genesis is really cool. Very different from the later Genesis. You listen to this album, and it'd be hard to believe that, many years down the road, it'd be the same band that would release albums like Invisible Touch or We Can't Dance and some of those later albums. This is just a totally different style, almost a totally different band. Production-wise, not the greatest, but still a good album. And more Genesis. This is more of the earlier years. This came after the album Trespass. This is Nursery Crime, Foxtrot. This year is like a double set of the album, so it comes with Nursery Crime and it also comes with Foxtrot. And Nursery Crime was the first album with Phil Collins on the drums. Peter Gabriel obviously still on the vocals. And another great album, Nursery Crime. I've always liked the song The Fountain of Salmacis off that album. It's a very epic song. Musical Box is great. Seven Stones is a beautiful song. The Return of the Giant Hogweed, also another epic song. It's a great album. Foxtrot, probably another one of my favorites. I would probably say, like, if I had to pick 5 Genesis albums that I really liked, Foxtrot would definitely be one that would be on that list. Watcher of the Skies is a classic by the band. Timetable is a really nice, softer, more poppy tune by the band, but a very early poppy tune. It's got a nice feel to it. Getting Them Out by Friday is strange, but it's cool musically. I love the song Can Utility and the Coastliners. And then the band's highly sought after epic by fans and by music critics is Supper's Ready, the 24-minute epic by the band. Really the only song of that length the band ever put out was Supper's Ready. And all the parts to it. And you got all the pictures of the guys right there. You got Peter Gabriel, who was looking interesting at that time. Phil Collins, Steve Hackett, Tony Banks, and then Michael Rutherford, all there. Really good band, man. Really good band. So staying in the progressive realm, and I hope this video wasn't too long. I mean, hey, if you're interested, great. I'm just doing this for pure enjoyment. Pink Floyd, baby. Pink Floyd. But a different kind of Pink Floyd. A kind of Pink Floyd that a lot of people kind of like to dismiss. And that is Momentary Lapse of Reason. A great album, man. I love this album. I love it. And a lot of Pink Floyd fans, they like to dismiss this one like so much because it's just not, it's not like the earlier stuff. This was after Roger Waters left the band. It was the first album with David Gilmour on lead vocals, and it was just different musically. Because the last album they did, which was what was that? The Final Cut. That was like early '80s, and then this album came out in 1987, and so it was very inspired by a lot of the '80s music. But still, man, a good album in itself. Signs of Life is a cool opening song, very atmospheric. You get some cool David Gilmour guitar riffs that come in. The obviously very well known hit "Learning to Fly." Dogs of War is great. One Slit, very catchy. And then the first side ends with the epic "On the Turning Away," which is just probably one of the best Pink Floyd songs, in my humble opinion. Yet Another Movie's cool. Round and Round, New Machine. Terminal Frost is like a really cool jazzy tune. And then the album ends with the epic, probably the David Gilmour epic too, because he plays this in so many of his concerts. And that's Sorrow. Just a great album, man. I don't care what anybody says. It's still a good album musically. I'll always like this album. Yeah, very good music. And kind of just going over Pink Floyd even more. This is a greatest hits compilation by the band. Um, a really good greatest hits compilation too. It flowed very well. They made this greatest hits compilation very much like any Pink Floyd album would be, where the songs flow into each other. And it's got a great gatefold, got a cool picture of the band, and you have along that big picture on all sides, you have a bunch of different pictures. And the cover is really cool too. It's just a bunch of Pink Floyd artwork with this guy in this graduation gown running across what looks to be a floor with all that different artwork. The album opens with "Hey You" from The Wall. Goes into "See Emily Play," which is like a really early Pink Floyd song from the David Gilmour era. Not the David Gilmour, the Syd Barrett era. My bad. Flows into "Happiest Days of Our Lives," "Comfortably Numb," "High Hopes," "Learning to Fly." Just a really good compilation of the songs and a really good overview of Pink Floyd. Definitely a really good greatest hits compilation. I know there's a bigger version of this. It's like 4 LPs. It has a little more songs on them. But this right here, man. This right here is good enough. Okay, so moving on to another stack. Really changing up the musical style here. Definitely one of my favorite duos. This is totally different from what we were going over before. This band was around for a while. They hit their heyday, kind of at the end mid '80s, and they had a long line of albums from the early '70s up till about the mid '80s that all sold very well. They all did very well. They maintained great relevancy throughout that period of time, even though the music changed substantially during that time. Early '70s to mid '80s. They kept up with the tide, and they really came out strong. That's Daryl Hall, John Oates, Big Bam Boom. I love this album. I don't know what else to say. It gets its, you can call it '80s cheese all you want, man, but I really enjoy this album. It was a big album back in its day when it came out. I mean, just front to back, it's just really fun, dude. It's just really fun. Sounds really good too. The production on this album is fantastic. So that right there, it's got a really cool looking custom label right there. Some of the most popular songs on this album are "Out of Touch," "Method and Modern Love," all that stuff. "Possession Obsession." But I do think that on this album, some of the songs that are not as known that really do display the musicianship that played with Daryl Hall and John Oates is "Cold and Dark Yesterday." I think that's a really cool song, and "Going Through the Motions." Those two are really cool. And when is the other one up? "Some Things Are Better Left Unsaid." That's also a really good song off this album too. So yeah, man. Daryl Hall, John Oates, Big Bam Boom. The album was a Big Bam Boom back in its day. I'm assuming that's probably where it got its title inspired from. Just a good album. If you like, '80s R&B, soul, which this kind of hovers in that area. I mean, this is a good album to start with. So yeah, Daryl Hall, John Oates, Big Bam Boom, good record. And another Daryl Hall, John Oates album. This came after Big Bam Boom. Wasn't as big commercially, but still a damn good album in its own right. Is this album right here? It's called "Ooh Yeah." It's kind of a funny name. Ooh Yeah. But I mean, the music off this album is just great too, man. Downtown Life, Everything Your Heart Desires, that was the hit off the album. Missed Opportunity was another hit off the album. Wasn't as popular as Everything Your Heart Desires. Also very soulful, just a really good song. I mean, man, front to back, I can't really say there's a bad song off this album. And it gets cheesy at times, man. It's really 80s, but not in like a bad way. It's done very well. Musicianship on this album is fantastic. It's got this cool, well, I don't think I should pull this out. But it's got the lyric sheet. You're right, who cares, right? Got the lyrics right there. The album looks cool. I don't want to take up too much time by showing you all of the custom labels on all these LPs. But man, this sounds great. Sounds great when I listen to it on my headphones. So yeah, Ooh Yeah, I would say a pretty underrated album by the band. Yeah, so there we go. And then kind of wrapping it up here pretty soon. I got like 6 more albums to show you guys. Hopefully that's not going to take too long. I'm just going to try to go by pretty fast. But man, really changing up the style again, going from like R&B soul, like 80s pop, like mainstream, and diving into some metal, baby, some heavy metal. I'm a big metal guy. I'm an all music kind of guy, but metal is like what I die for. Particularly right now, I've been getting into so much metal. Like before, I didn't like metal so much, but now I do, and now I totally see why, and realized that it was totally fit for my kind of personality. And we're starting off with one of the most legendary metal bands of all time. And that is Iron Maiden, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. Just a kick-ass album, dude. Just a kick-ass album. Not a bad song on this whole album. I mean, it's just fucking awesome, dude. I don't know what else to say. I mean, you start off with Moonchild, which is a fan favorite. Infinite Dreams is awesome. Can I Play with Madness is a good hit. The Evil That Men Do, another fan favorite. Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is an epic. Prophecy, the Clairvoyant. Man, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son is a damn good record. And I'm going to show you guys this one because it's really cool. It's got some really cool artwork. I mean, you got the inner sleeve right here with, you got the picture of the band and all the lyrics. Who cares? Okay. But you got this picture of Eddie right here with like this orb. And he's doing like some magic and stuff. I don't know what's going on in that photo, but I really like that artwork. I think that's really cool. It's brilliant. And the custom label is really cool too. And it plays really well too. This is a reissue, so it sounds great. And pull it out. You got on one side what looks to be that orb, and then on the other side you got, the track listings and stuff. I'll pull it out, show you guys real quick. Very nice media, very crystal clean and clear. Just a great album. So glad to have this in the collection because Iron Maiden has become one of my favorite bands. So yeah, Seventh Son of a Seventh Son. I do plan on collecting a bunch of Maiden albums. I actually do plan to have their whole discography part of my collection at some point. I just ordered a few more. I won't tell which ones. And then a few more Maiden albums. We'll go over these quick. A couple other classics. We got Power Slave, and we got Peace of Mind. This is the first one that I bought. This is actually the first Iron Maiden or the second Iron Maiden album that really got me into the band. Just another classic album. It's got a really cool gatefold too with some really funny artwork. I like as you see these guys in like these night outfits. They look like just total goofballs, just totally playing around. And you got the picture of the band right there, looking like they're about ready to feast. You got like some Bahrain there or whatever. I don't know what that's supposed to mean, but I don't care, man. The music is awesome. Where Eagles Dare, classic. Revelations, classic. Fight of Icarus, epic. You have the legendary, the Trooper on here. And then it ends with a really cool song called To Tame a Land, an underrated Iron Maiden song, to say the least. It's kind of a longer tune. It's not talked about a lot. So yeah, man, Peace of Mind, great album. And then Of course, I just showed it, but the album that came after was Power Slave. And just another classic as well, man. Another great album. I can't say there's a single bad song on this album. I mean, it opens up with the classic fan favorite song, Aces High, going into 2 Minutes to Midnight. But some of the lesser known songs on this album, too, are really cool. I really like Lost for Words, The Big Aura. That's an instrumental song on this album. Flash the Blade is a fun song. The Duelist is an awesome tune. Back in the Village, also another great tune, too. And then Power Slave and Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner, two of the other fan favorites on here. Songs that were played heavily in concert. So, yeah, man, Iron Maiden, definitely a great band. And I've been listening to a lot of Iron Maiden lately. And, like I said, man, all their albums are good. Every one that I've heard has been awesome. It's kicked ass, including every live album. The only ones that I would say they're maybe a little lesser than the rest of them are the albums from the Blaze era. I haven't really listened to them a lot. I've listened to the X Factor once. I can't really remember much of it though, but I've never listened to the Virtue album. I'll eventually get around to those. But I'm sure in their own right musically, given that it's Iron Maiden, they've got to be pretty good. So yeah, Iron Maiden, one of my faves, babe. And then going into my favorite band, finishing it off with the favorite is Rush, 2112. I'm actually playing Rush right now. I'm playing the Rush and Rio album. Right now we're on Red Sector A. Turn it up a little bit. Rush, baby. It's Rush. What else do I have to say? 2112 was their breakthrough album, and it's probably one of the most epic albums. It opens up with the epic 2112, the first side, 20 minutes long, just progressive rock heaven. So damn good. And dude, it's just a great album. 2112, Hash to Bangkok, Twilight Zone, Lessons, Tears, front to back, great album. The band photo right there is very goofy, very 70s looking. But I don't really care, man. A lot of these goofy band photos go along with some really great albums with a lot of great music. So you really can't say a whole lot. But yeah, man, 2112 by Rush, epic album. You can't go wrong with it. You can't go wrong. A Rush classic indeed. And going into more Rush, this is definitely of a different era of Rush, where the band really had changed their style and had really moved into what was more popular at the time. That's the 80s Rush. 80s Rush sounded very different from the 70s more progressive rock Rush, but I love it all. And that's Grace Under Pressure and Power Windows. Two great albums from that time period, mid-80s. This is 84, this is 85. Judging by the music, these are like two of some of my most favorite albums. And I have a Signals poster on the back, another great album. But these two, man, they stand out the most. I'm playing these albums a lot, particularly Grace Under Pressure. I freaking love this album. Distant Early Warning is one of my favorite hits of theirs. Red Sector A, awesome. The Enemy Within, really cool. The Body Electric. And then the epic song on here that ends the album is Between the Wheels. Just a really good album. It's got a really cool custom label too. Fortunately, this copy of mine, it skips on The Enemy Within, which is kind of a bummer. Other than that, the rest of the album plays great. You got that cool looking custom logo right there with what looks to be some Japanese characters. But yeah, man, album sounds great. Sounds really, really good. These Rush reissues are awesome. They're freaking phenomenal. So yeah, man, Grace Under Pressure and Power Windows are two of some of my most favorite Rush albums. Come on, get in there. So yeah, got to see Rush live too. Got to see him live once on the Clockwork Angels tour, and then twice on their R40 tour in both Seattle and Portland. Both phenomenal shows, baby. Those were. I don't think there's ever going to be a concert in my life that's going to top that. there's gonna be good concerts that I'm gonna see in my life, indeed. But given that Rush is my favorite band, it's kind of hard to top it. But then Power Windows favorite songs. I love the whole album. But the Big Money, Manhattan Project Marathon, Territories, Middletown Dreams, just a freaking awesome album. Love this album to death. Yeah, man. A lot of Rush fans, they just love to just dismiss everything that came after Moving Pictures. I've heard even some of them think that the band just should have called it quits. It's like, dude, what the hell are you talking about? They're like, you aren't a Rush fan, dude. And no offense to those who like that better than some of the 80s stuff. There's a little something for everybody. But the last album I'm going to show here, going to wrap this up here pretty soon, is the live album that went along with that era of Rush, and that is A Show of Hands. Just a really great live album with a lot of great song recordings. The band is just on fire here. Just both musically and just everything. The audience is great. And the recordings are just so good. They're so crystal clear. Matter of fact, some of the recordings off this live album, they sound better than some of the studio recordings. Like, in my opinion, I think the version of Turn the Page off this album sounds better in the studio. Mission sounds a little bit better on this album in the studio. They're all great. But yeah, man, Show of Hands, one of my favorite live albums of all time. I'll show you the gatefold. It's got that cool 80s photos of the band. You got, Alex shredding it there on the guitar, Neil just ripping away on the drums. And, Geddy being that crazy musician that he is, singing, playing bass, and playing keyboards. So, yeah, man. Yeah. So that's all I've got to show you right now. What are we at? 31 minutes right now? That's not too bad. I'd say this is a pretty good first upload, not going to lie. And I hope this channel goes good places. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to keep doing things with it. Anyways, hope everybody's having a good night. Hope you're all taking care. Enjoying your music, living a good life. Anyways, you guys, have a good one. Take care. Peace.